Hey, welcome to On This Hill, a podcast of Church on the Hill. And we've got a guest with me this morning, Yuri Latik. Did I pronounce that right? Your
You
last
did.
name?
You did great. Yeah.
And I think you're going to find it interesting. Every week we bring someone different in. This particular day, we've got a team from Church on the Hill that just got back from an outreach in Ukraine. And I listened to some of their story this past Sunday from various team members. We were debriefing it on a Sunday morning and telling some of the stories that had happened. And it was so good, I thought, I'd love to have Yuri on the podcast. So here we are. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. You enjoying summer so far?
So far, I mean, just getting started for
Do you
me.
have a summer yet?
It's been a busy beginning of the summer. So
Yuri is in law enforcement, right? And as a career. And so thanks for what you do as first responder. I can't imagine the stories. We were joking before the podcast about we have similar stories with people, but from maybe different angles, right?
Right. Yeah.
I bet there's no end.
There is, and the people have a tendency to surprise you. Every corner you take, there's something new.
Have you ever been like shocked? Like, I've never heard that before. Is it in your line of work?
Every other day.
Every other day.
Every other day.
It's like top that one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. As a pastor, same thing. Sometimes people will say things or do things, and I'm like, I've never actually seen that before. I can't believe you're kind of doing this. And,
Exactly. It's mind blowing.
Is being in law enforcement, sheriff, Marion County Sheriff, rewarding? Do you enjoy it?
I love it. It gives you an opportunity to meet a lot of people. And like you said, sometimes people surprise you, but sometimes in the good way, sometimes in the bad way. And you get to see all of that kind of like front row seats. So it's amazing.
Yeah, they call it first responder for a reason, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
Been doing a little over 4 years. Started in March of 2020, right when COVID started. So
right. Did you always kind of aspire to law enforcement? Did you want to do that when you were younger, or how'd that happen?
When we moved here from Ukraine originally, I wanted to be in law enforcement, and there were a couple of avenues I was thinking about taking, and eventually life took a different turn and walked away from it and moved on. But an opportunity presented itself about 6 years ago, and I figured might as well. I wanted to try it, might as well give it a shot, and I love it. So
Well, again, thanks for giving it a shot because we appreciate all our law enforcement and first responders. You guys keep our lives safe and sane. One of the things we're going to talk about today is you were on a team, 16 people. 14 guys and 2 women. Is that correct?
Yep.
And you went to Ukraine, which is basically your nation of birth, right? You were born, how old were you born and raised? How much time were you in Ukraine?
I was 16 years old when we moved to the United States. So born and raised, I finished high school there. And
interesting.
Yeah.
So half your life was in Ukraine and about more or less half your life's been here in the States.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow. As a 16-year-old coming here, what was that like? What was that transition like coming to the United States at 16 years of age?
It was a little bit of shocking, I guess. So basically, when we moved here to reunite family with my grandma and her brother, who moved here originally after World War II. So we've always had her on our radar. We always talked about America and the United States as a kids. I remember with my brother and my cousins, there was part of our kind of role playing and play and games and everything. So we had a lot of expectations, but we didn't know what to expect at the same time because we didn't really know what United States was. So coming here, it was definitely a cultural shock, I would say, and it was just a new experience.
Where did you land when you came here? What area?
So originally we came to New York, and that's where we got processed with all the legal stuff, and then we came straight to Salem.
Wow. So you came to the West Coast.
We came to the West Coast, and lived here ever since. Yeah. So
I'm just curious, what was what were the first impressions? I mean, you've heard about America, but you're still in Ukraine, but you're going to America, then you actually get here. What were your first impressions when you got here? Was it like you expected, or was it different? Or
it was different because, like I said, I didn't know what to expect. We just had our kind of what we thought we knew and kind of what we imagined it would be. But it was great. I remember I came here, 16-year-old, all the new cars, all the cool cars, a bunch of people, all the big buildings. I mean, the city I come from, I think the biggest building was like 9 stories, and then you come to New York, and it's just like mind blowing.
Yeah,
so,
I bet. How much English did you have when you came here?
Very little. We learned English in school back in Ukraine, but it was very kind of basic.
Elementary,
Yep.
Yeah.
So everything I learned was here for the most part.
How long did it take you to feel like you were comfortable speaking English?
To be honest, I still don't feel comfortable sometimes, especially in some of the situations when I get nervous. I kind of revert back to Russian. I can throw in a Russian word here or Ukrainian word, whatever. But I'd say a few years. I mean, thank God, luckily, I was one of the luckier ones to where I picked it up a lot easier than majority of the people that came with us. So I'd say 2-3 years I was able to communicate. Then probably like 5-6 years into it, I was.
But you were
fairly
thrown into the deep end. You started going to high school, I would imagine.
Right. When we came here, they put us in high school. I think I went 10th grade, so sophomore, and my brother was a junior.
Wow. I've been to Ukraine once. I've been to Ternopil, which is western Ukraine. Where in the country, north, south, east, west, where are you from?
So I was in a very central part. So do you have kind of an idea where Kiev is?
Yeah.
I'm about 2 hours west of Kiev. That's where I was born and raised.
Not a very big place, not a very big town?
I'm about the size of Salem. I'd say it was about 120,000 people, but it was just a little different makeup, I guess, because we have a lot of residential area. Back in Ukraine when I grew up, it was a lot of like 9 5-story buildings, bunch of apartments rather than residential homes.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. So about, I don't know, I think it was around 7 or 8 months ago, Jeff Nelson, who helped run this, he was the leader of the team that just went, partnered with another organization, Youth with a Mission, and an organization on the ground to build a number of homes. Tell us about that. Who were you building the homes for? It's called Waves of Hope?
Waves of Hope.
Waves of Hope. And these are like prefabbed homes that you put together, kind of a kit, so to speak. The slab is there when you get there. But who were you building for?
So it was for the families that were in need, families that lost their homes and lost their families and couldn't afford to rebuild and they had nowhere to live. The selection process is, from what I understand, and I don't know ins and outs of it, but the selection process is pretty thorough. So they're trying to make sure the people that are actually in need get these homes.
Right. So their homes were destroyed because you guys were near where you just were, just a few weeks ago, was near combat zone?
Yeah, we were about 20, 30 miles away from the front line, and the area we were in when the war invasion originally started in 2022, they got heavily bombed and shelled indiscriminately. All the residential areas, schools, government buildings, pretty much everything. And we could see the result of that as we drove into the village we were building, because you can see a lot of rubble, a lot of destruction, and homes just destroyed and leveled.
What was that like for you, Yuri, as a Ukrainian, going back to your home country and seeing that? And just what was going on inside of you emotionally? Like,
it was a lot of praying and kind of like crying on the inside. I mean, to me, it was really hard to see to see what happened to the country. I mean, the region we were in, I've never visited before, but it was very similar to where I grew up, and same villages, same homes, same people, culture, pretty much everything. Yeah. So seeing back when we moved here in 2002, so 22 years ago, when I was in Ukraine, I saw beautiful homes, happy families, beautiful villages and towns, and now I'm coming in, there's just rubble and destruction everywhere, and it was just very hard, I would say, because I kept looking at it and just on the inside, it was hard.
Yeah. You know, you were there, home in your home, kind of, so to speak, and you're speaking the language. You're translating, I imagine, for the team, right? You were one of the translators. There was one other Ukrainian on the team, Oleg Foksha's father, Igor. And what do you feel like? How the Ukrainians that are there on the ground, they can't leave Ukraine. They're there. They're kind of stuck there. What was your take on them? Were they angry? Were they holding on to God? Were they godless? Were they, what was your sense of how they were doing and dealing with all this conflict?
Right. So we had 2 different experiences, because we built 2 homes with our part. So we went with 16 people, but then we divided into 8 people groups and built 2 homes each. So the first family we built for was a father and the mother with 4 boys in the family. And the father was not Christian. I don't think either one of them were Christian. So when we first met him, there was a lot of resentment towards Russia and towards the war and everything. And speaking with the father, who at first was very reserved and didn't want to talk to us much at all, because you can see all the hate and anger in his heart. And then once he actually opened up, you can feel and hear all the anger in his words. He was saying that if he gets to work, so basically they don't draft people who have 3 or more kids right now. And he was saying that might change. And if and when I go back to work, I'm going to pay them back. That was the message that we received. He's like, I'm not going to spare anybody. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to do to them what they did to us.
Yeah.
And after we finished building the house and we talked to them, we spent a lot of time talking to the kids and to the wife and the husband and everything. And towards the end, they all accepted Jesus after Ryan called them to prayer, and they accepted Jesus. And just a change from when we saw them first and when we were leaving, there were different people. You can tell that there was a lot of love in their eyes and there was a lot more peace in their hearts. So that was experience with one, the family. The second family, we came in, they were an older couple, and it was their daughter's house that was on their property that got destroyed. But they were Christian, and I believe they were Orthodox because I talked to them. And so for them, it was a kind of a different perspective, I guess, because I was talking to the mom, and she was saying, I know God is doing this for a reason. I understand we're invaded, but there's still people, older Russian soldiers. They have kids, they have moms, they have dads. They're still people before anything else. So kind of gives you
That's so interesting.
the difference when people that know God and people that don't, and their take and perspective on the war and everything.
Did either the families ask you guys, like, why are you doing this? You guys came all the way from the U.S., and again, these aren't huge homes. Well, how big are the homes?
They were about 400 to 500 square feet, roughly.
So, yeah, that's not maybe someone's living room, basically.
Right.
And they're living in there with a family, and they sleep there, cook there, live there. Did they ask you, though, like, why are you doing this? Anybody wonder, like, what's...
So I think the families we were building for in our particular ones, they didn't really ask us why we're there. I think they were just grateful that we were there, and because for them it was just the only solution, the only hope that we would come in and give them something they didn't have. But there was other people that were not involved in this, just random people we talked to, and I guess it was more for me because I speak the language, so I spoke to people at the store next door to our hotel where we stayed, and they were just mind blowing. Like, what are you doing here? Like, people are trying to get out, and you guys coming in. Like, the war is right here. And then all my friends, a lot of people, even to this day, I spoke to some of the people, and they're like, "Is it worth it?" It's like, they're at war. You're building these homes, but like, why are you doing it? They're going to get destroyed again potentially. I'm like, well, potentially they will, but the message that we're left with those homes will not get destroyed because God had a plan, and it was bigger than the home.
That's so interesting. I think even on our end in the States here and in the church on the hills, we were promoting the trip and raising funds to build, because you guys worked, I believe it was a matching grant kind of a thing. For every home we built, another organization would match it.
That is correct.
So that's how we built the 4 homes. And some people even on this side asked the question, is this the best use of our money? What would you say to somebody that asked you that? Is this the best use of resources to go to the other side of the world and build homes for people we don't know and they might get destroyed?
And yeah, I think it is. I just had the same conversation with one of my family members over the weekend. And same thing. They're like, why wouldn't you just hire a crew of people? And the labor is cheap in Ukraine. You could just hire a crew of people, and it's going to be cheaper, and have them build those homes and be done with it. You don't have to leave your family. You don't have to leave your work. You don't have to do all of that. But on the other side of that coin is, what message are we sending? Because like I said, the main point of this trip was not the homes. The homes were great, building them, giving people shelter is great, but it's the message that we carried with the word of God, the gospel, the sacrifice that Jesus did for us. So when we're sacrificing something, our money, our time, our families, whatever, to do good, to spread the message, to spread the good news for people that are in need, it's worth way more than money can buy.
Yeah, there's just some things that money cannot fix or
Correct.
cannot buy. Yeah. Wow. What about you personally? When you, because everything you've said up to this point is you guys went to give, to build a house, to love on people, to share the message of the gospel. But did you walk away with anything from God, like personally, like a new understanding, a word, a kind of a perspective? What did you walk away with?
Oh, 100%. So even going to Ukraine when we were still having our meetings and getting ready, this is not the first outreach trip that I've taken. So I know from experience that every time you go on a missionary trip or on an outreach trip, you give a lot, but you get even more. Like, I've never came back from a trip not bringing something with me spiritually, and
something you learned,
just something you learn in the experience in life. So going to Ukraine was the same thing. I knew it wasn't just going to be, hey, we're going to go build homes, come back, and life goes on the same it did before. So for me, it was a lot of just trusting God, just loving God, just being more like like Jesus was, just being more accepting and loving to people that are around you, whether they deserve it or not.
Yeah.
And that goes to same, like, kind of, I'm talking about the war again. It's like both sides of that war. They're all people. They all have emotions. They love.
Yeah. They all have needs.
They have needs, and some of them just don't know what the love of Christ is, and they need to hear about it.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. While you were there, along with the other, how long did it take, by the way, to build the house from start to finish with a crew of 8? How many?
So our team, we built first house in about 2.5 days, I think.
So it goes together pretty quick.
It goes together pretty quick, and I mean, I got to give credit to our team. We had an amazing team of people. A lot of us didn't know each other at the beginning, but then we all became family, and we figured out whose strengths were what and who could do what, and everyone humbled themselves, and the work just flowed really smoothly. So for us, we got it done pretty quickly.
At the end, when the house is finished 2 or 3 days later, talk about that, the custom, if you will, the tradition of handing the keys to the new family. What do how did that look? What did it look like on your end?
Right. So Ukrainian tradition, and we tried to kind of stick to it as much as we can. That way it would kind of combine itself with the gospel message and with the tradition. That way people can accept it a little easier. And the tradition is when you get a new house and you move in, you have your guest over, and it's a big deal for people. So we kind of followed the same thing. We built the house, we finished the house, we got it all done. Family showed up. We had a set of keys for the house, and we had a Bible for them. And the message was that the house you live in, but the Bible is something you live by. That's your pretty much the owner's manual for the house. You read it, you're going to find all the answers there. And we prayed. And first family, Ryan Hale, and I mentioned him before, he preached.
He's a local pastor that was on that team?
Correct.
Nice.
Yeah, he preached, and he had a great message for the family. And at the end of it, they decided to give their hearts to the Lord. All 6 of them, husband, wife, and 4 boys, they all got on their knees and just accepting God. And it was it was amazing. And after that, we give them the keys in the Bible and tell them, hey, go inside the house, lock the doors, and we're going to be your first guests. And so
they go in the house. You guys are on the outside. They shut the door. They lock the door. And then what happens?
Then we come and knock on the door, and they open it, and they're like, oh, hello there. And we're like, well, we want to be your first guest. Can we come in? And they let us in. And usually, according to the tradition, whenever you receive a guest in Ukraine, you're going to have just a big table with all the food and drinks and everything, just because hospitality is
a big
at the top of the things in Ukraine. So the owners, they were like, oh, we're really sorry. We don't have anything. We just got this house.
We just got the house.
You guys showed up really early.
Stove's not hooked up yet.
Yeah, so we just prayed with them and blessed their family and blessed
cool.
their house and just gave them hugs. And it was a very emotional moment. It was great.
I can just imagine. Yeah. Well, what a great deal. Man, thank you guys so much. You had an experience, kind of interesting, unique to you and the other Ukrainian on the team, Igor, that day 2 or 3, Ukraine passed a new law. Now, this, as we speak right now, you guys just got home a couple weeks ago. So all this is really relatively new. What happened while you were over there that kind of gave you a little bit of like, I wonder how this is going to work?
All right. So the law that you're talking about, it was passed by Ukrainian government. Basically, what they're trying to do due to the war, they're trying to keep all the males in the country between the age of 18 and 60, I think.
Yeah.
And what they did with this new law they passed, due to martial law in the country, they said anybody who was born in Ukraine and moved out or got a different passport or citizen of any other country is considered to be a citizen of Ukraine due to the martial law. And you had to go in and register with the government officials and get your paperwork and everything done and not allowed to leave, basically, the way I read. So my wife, she sent me a message, a screenshot of an Instagram post saying that.
And you had no idea.
I had no clue.
No, because you guys are not checking the internet every day. Or whatever.
Yeah. I had no clue. She didn't have any idea until she got because what she told me, she got a bunch of messages from everybody. It's like, hey, Yuri's in Ukraine and this just passed. And so I looked at it and I ran and I responded to her. We're at the hotel where we had Wi-Fi, so I was able to communicate with her. I'm like, it's Instagram. People post all kinds of stuff. Don't worry about it. We're good. And then a short time after, my cousin sends me a link to U.S. Embassy in Kyiv that says, hey, Ukraine just passed this law, and they pretty much spelled out what the law was. And so there's a do not travel warning issued for all the people born in Ukraine.
Expats, yeah.
Yeah, and it stated that, they're not going to let you out regardless of your passport, regardless of what you have. If you were born there, you're staying.
So what day is this in the trip?
I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm having a hard time remembering now. I think it was Tuesday morning.
Early on.
Yeah, we got there on Sunday. So, it was Tuesday morning.
Yeah. And you get this message that, hey, if you're born in Ukraine, you can't leave the country. What's going through your head then?
So my first thing, I was like, I remember I was sitting in my bed and just kind of in the fog almost. I was like, this is crazy. Like, do I try to leave now and cross the border out of the country and see if I can just get out before people really realize what's going on, all their officials? Because, I mean, I like I said, I didn't know what to do. And my wife, Julie, she was the same way. She was like, maybe you should try getting out. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I prayed about it. And then God's like, I brought you here for a reason. Like, what are you doing running? Like, you have a task to finish here. And the interesting, Jeff, our leader, Jeff Nelson, he told us from the day one, he's like, hey, the enemy's going to fight you. He's going to put doubt in your heart, like throughout from the day one till we come back to the United States and after. He's going to try to get you not do what God wants you to do. And I thought about that and I was like, this can't be real. I'm like, God is above that. God has got this. So I told my wife, I'm like, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pray about it. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to finish building these homes. I'm going to finish what I signed up for because I can't just run away just because I'm scared or because I'm nervous or worried. And my wife was on board with that. She was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And we're just going to be praying. And
You have how many children?
I have 3.
So your wife and 3 children, they know what's going on.
Right.
But they're in the back in the States praying for you.
Yep.
And you guys are...
So that day, Tuesday, I mean, obviously it was a pretty rough day for me. And I was trying to work and keep my mind. I didn't want to tell the team anything. I didn't want to distract anybody from
they didn't
what
know.
we're doing. So they didn't know. I think Derek Knoll, who goes to this church as well, he was my teammate. And he came up to me during the day. He's like, hey, man, what's going on? Something's different. So I told him, I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. I don't want to take anything away from what we're doing here. But that's when we prayed together, just kind of in the back of the house. And I feel like he just continued praying for me. So it was great. And we kept working and doing our thing. And about 2-3 days into it, I woke up in the morning and I opened the Bible, and pretty much like every verse I read, God's just saying, hey, trust me. Trust me. Yeah. And at that point, I sat there and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, we came here across the world. Like, a lot had to happen for us to be here. And now I'm sitting here doubting God over what? Over some law that got passed here on earth. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trust you, God. I'm going to take it for what it is, and we'll figure it out as we go. So at that point, I got like this supernatural peace in my heart. And I talked to Jeff Nelson. I told him, I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but just pray about it. I'm praying about it. Let's keep that in the back of our minds. And after that, I had just peace in my heart about this whole situation. And God led us through, and He figured it out.
Yeah. So when you guys and maybe we don't, our listeners don't realize, but you can't fly into Ukraine. So you guys had to go on a border crossing that was by land.
Correct.
And then you had to get to Moldova.
Moldova, yeah. So due to the war, there's no airplanes
Flights
flying
in
over.
and out.
Yeah, there's no flight zone over Ukraine. So we had to drive a big bus of 50 people across the border.
And what was going through your mind as you're approaching the border, getting ready to leave the country?
I'm just looking around, and I remember like I was sitting by the window just looking out and praying, and same thing. I have God telling me, I got you, and then I have this other voice. He's like, what if it's not going to happen? And I'm like, so it was a bit of that battle in my head and in my heart, but it was kind of interesting because I was talking to my brother and my cousin over the phone. I was kind of messaging back and forth. I'm like, hey, I'm at the border. I'm going to be crossing right now. And they're like, all right, well, let us know what's going to happen. And then we get there, and for whatever reason, they told us to stop just short of the border. Bus, they had us pulled over. And we were there for like an hour and a half, just parked next to the store. And so they keep messaging me. It's like, have you crossed yet? I'm like, we're just stopped. They're like, why? I'm like, I have no clue. We're just stopped. So I sat there and just kind of prayed and just waited and waited. And eventually we were given a green light to go to the border crossing, and they took our passports, did their checks, 20 to 30 minutes, not more than that. Came back and gave me my passport with the stamp in it, didn't ask anything, didn't say anything. We crossed in, and Igor, he was really worried as well, but the whole team, everybody's like, praise the Lord. We're all just super grateful.
Man, that's so cool. It's crazy. I was just sitting here thinking as you were talking, our citizenship the Apostle Paul says, is in heaven,
Right.
right? But at the same time, our feet are on the earth. We have to operate. So we have an American passport or a Ukrainian passport or something that it's our identity before men, but our real citizenship is heavenly, and our real identity is we're the sons of God and sons and daughters of God. And like you said, there's these two voices. One says, hey, it's me, your dad, I got you. And the other says, no, he doesn't. The voice of fear, the voice of accusation.
Yeah, it's hard to remember that every day in our daily lives. We get so busy with all the tasks and everything. We learn to rely on ourselves rather than trusting God with everything on a daily basis. And that's so kind of going back to what'd you bring with you from Ukraine? Just trusting God, man. just knowing that He's there for you regardless of the earthly circumstances, regardless of what's going on around you, the storm around you, that God's got you in His hand.
I bet that was a great reunion with your wife and kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they had to have been, I would imagine they were having the same struggle, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're trusting God, but they're still worried.
And when we were crossing, I think it was 3 a.m. here in the United States where we were. And I told Julie, my wife, I told her, I'm like, hey, go to sleep. I'll send you a message. You'll see it in the morning whenever. Whatever it's going to be, you're going to see, you're going to know. But she ended up staying up. Obviously, she couldn't sleep. So, and it goes back to the battle that's going on. You trust God, but at the same time, we're here on earth. So,
oh, my gosh. That's amazing.
It was definitely.
Yeah. So there's conversation already. So here at Church on the Hill, we send missions teams out all year long. Cross Hill Christian sends teams. We send teams, high school, adult, and so forth. We have a team leaving in 2 weeks, a construction team going to Mexico, build homes for the poor. Very similar outreach, totally different place, of course. And that's a family outreach. But there's talk about another Ukraine team going in the fall of this year, 2024. Would you go again?
I probably would. I don't know how my wife would feel about that, but I definitely would.
Yeah, and who knows what it's going to be like between now and
exactly
September.
Exactly.
October.
I mean, obviously with the whole laws and everything, I do trust God, but at the same time, you don't want to.
Yeah.
But I absolutely would. It's not even a question for me.
That's really cool. Yeah, man, Yuri, I appreciate just the fact that you stayed the course and you held on to that faith. And you finished the task, that the Lord had given you to do, you and the rest of the team. And you feel like you made some new friends on that team. I mean, I know most of the team, almost the entire team, attends Church on the Hill. Mm-hmm. Some came from a couple other churches, but you feel like you made some deeper friendships with those guys? 100%
with everybody, pretty much. I mean, like I said, we split up into 2 groups. So the 8 people that were on my team, I mean, they're family because we spend 5-6 days.
Yeah,
just hand in hand with each other. We saw our highs and lows, and we worked hard. We sweat together. We prayed together. We laughed together. So they're all amazing people. I didn't know majority of the people. Like you said, we all go to the same church. There's so many different services, and some people go to Kaiser. There were a couple of people. I was like, oh, I've never seen you. Like, oh, I go to Kaiser. I'm like, okay, I never go to Kaiser. So, but now they're all friends.
Yeah. And thanks for just taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, and it's the 4th of July week here when we're recording this. So I imagine Sheriff's Department is pretty busy over the 4th of July weekend.
We definitely have a lot to do.
Oh gosh! But thanks for everything you do once again, serving our community and serving our church and serving your family and being a great example.
Absolutely. Thank you for your support, you guys. That means a lot, more than everyone thinks.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it doesn't go unnoticed. I know some people might not, but it doesn't go unnoticed from our end. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So listen, we're going to wrap it up, but if this has been a help to you and you feel like someone might benefit, I think this particular podcast would benefit so many different people if they just knew about it. So just pass it on, send a link to somebody, make a comment about it on our church website. You can find it on YouTube and our website, Church on the Hill. COTH.com, COTHcommunity.com. And if we can pray for you for anything, if there's any questions you might have for us, or maybe you'd like to get in contact with my friend Yuri and ask some more questions, or maybe you'd like to join a trip one of these times when we go, please stay in touch. We'd love to have you. And so, have a great July. We're in the middle of summer. Take advantage of it. So God bless. Take care.